I always believed I had a good handle on my relationship with Sarah. We'd been together for 3 years, and it felt like we were in sync on almost everything. Friends often told us how enviable our bond was, how we seemed to finish each other's sentences and shared the same quirky sense of humor. I thought we were solid, built on trust and mutual respect. But as I settled into my routine, I began to notice subtle changes. Sarah became more absorbed in her phone, often laughing at messages she received. At first, I brushed it off as harmless. After all, we all had friends to joke with. However, there was an edge to her laughter, a glint in her eye when she looked at her screen that I hadn't seen before. I convinced myself it was nothing, just a passing phase. Maybe she was reconnecting with old friends, and I was happy for her. One Friday evening, after a long week at work, I came home to find Sarah engrossed in her phone again. I felt a mix of annoyance and curiosity, but I didn't want to invade her privacy. I made us dinner, hoping to spark a conversation that would bring us back to our usual rhythm. But as I set the table, I noticed she barely acknowledged my presence, too focused on her screen. "Hey, everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Yeah, just chatting with Jess," she replied, not looking up. I nodded, but a knot tightened in my stomach. Jess was a friend I'd met a few times, but I didn't know her well. I trusted Sarah completely, but that didn't stop the creeping doubts from inching into my mind. I could hear the playful banter in her voice, and it felt different, tinged with an energy I hadn't experienced between us in a while. As the days turned into weeks, I began to feel like I was on the outside looking in. Sarah would often step outside to take calls, and I could see her smiling, her eyes lighting up in a way that left me feeling cold. Each time she hung up, I wanted to ask who it was, but fear held me back. I didn't want to sound paranoid or possessive. One afternoon, while Sarah was in the shower, I noticed her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. An unfamiliar name flashed across the screen, Mark. I hesitated, battling my conscience. Should I check it? I told myself that trusting her meant respecting her privacy. But the gnawing doubt clawed at me. Curiosity got the better of me. I picked up her phone, heart racing, and glanced at the notifications. The messages were innocuous at first, friendly banter, inside jokes. But then I saw something that made my stomach drop. "Can't wait to see you again. Just us this time." My breath caught in my throat. I felt the world tilt on its axis. I forced myself to keep reading, hoping it was just a misunderstanding, a playful exchange that meant nothing. But the texts painted a different picture, one of intimacy and secrecy. My hands trembled as I put the phone down, a whirlwind of emotions crashing over me. I thought of all the moments we shared, the late-night talks, the dreams of a future together. Now, they felt like an illusion, a carefully constructed facade. How could she betray my trust like this? How long had it been going on? Questions spiraled through my mind, each one more painful than the last. As I paced the living room, I felt a simmering anger and a profound sense of betrayal. I had trusted her completely, and now I was left reeling, uncertain of what to do next. Confronting her felt like walking into a minefield, but I knew I couldn't ignore what I'd found. The perfect illusion had shattered, and I was left to pick up the pieces. Chapter 2, The Confrontation. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The shadows danced on the walls as my mind replayed the events of the past weeks. I felt like I was in a haze, trapped between disbelief and anger. The text messages echoed in my head, taunting me with their implication. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to confront Sarah. But how do you address something so intimate, so potentially destructive? I imagined the conversation spiraling into chaos, the words spilling out in a rush of pain and confusion. But I also knew that silence was no longer an option. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow in the room. Sarah was still asleep beside me, her face peaceful and unaware of the turmoil swirling inside me. I hesitated, contemplating whether to wait for a better moment or to face this head-on. Ultimately, I chose the latter. "Sarah," I said softly, shaking her awake. She stirred, blinking sleepily at me. "Hey, what's up?" she asked, her voice husky with sleep. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "We need to talk." Her expression shifted, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "Okay, what about?" I swallowed hard, choosing my words carefully. "It's about your texts. I saw the messages from Mark." Her eyes widened, and I could see the panic rising. "You went through my phone." "I didn't mean to invade your privacy, but I couldn't help it. I was worried about you. The way you've been acting lately, it just didn't feel right." My voice trembled slightly as I spoke. "Worrying is one thing, but snooping is a breach of trust," she snapped, pulling away from me. "I had a reason to worry, Sarah." "Those messages, what do they mean?" "Just us this time." Her face turned pale, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. "It's not what you think. Mark is just a friend." "Just a friend?" "Sarah, it doesn't sound like that at all. You're spending time with him without telling me. What else are you hiding?" I felt the frustration bubbling over, the betrayal spilling into my voice. "I'm not hiding anything," she shot back, her voice rising. "It's just a few texts. We've been friends for years. You're blowing this out of proportion. Friends don't text things like that, Sarah. You know it." Her eyes flashed with something. Was it guilt? Anger? I couldn't tell. "I can't believe you're accusing me of cheating," she said, her tone softer now, almost pleading. "I would never do that to you." "Then explain it to me," I said, desperation creeping in. "I just need to understand. If it's nothing, why not be open about it?" She hesitated, looking down at her hands. "I didn't want to worry you. I thought you'd be jealous for no reason. It was a stupid joke, nothing more. But it doesn't feel like nothing. It feels like you're hiding something." The words hung heavy in the air, and I could see the walls we'd built between us starting to crumble. "I promise, it's nothing. I swear to you, I would never cheat on you," she said, her voice quaking. "I care about you too much." Her vulnerability pulled at my heart, but I still felt a storm of emotions brewing inside me. "Then why do I feel so betrayed? You have to understand how this looks from my side. I get that, but you have to trust me. You've always trusted me. Why can't you now?" I wanted to trust her. I really did. But trust was a fragile thing, and the foundation of ours felt cracked and uneven. "I want to, but I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that?" The silence stretched between us like an unbridgeable chasm. She finally nodded, her expression softening. "Okay. I'll be honest. I promise." But as she spoke, a nagging doubt lingered at the back of my mind. Could I ever truly feel secure again, knowing that my trust had been shaken? I wanted to believe in her words, but the seeds of doubt had been sown, and I feared they would take root. "Let's try to work through this," she said, reaching for my hand. I hesitated, then took it, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine. "Okay," I said quietly, but inside, I knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be long and fraught with uncertainty, and I wasn't sure if we could navigate it together. As the sun rose higher in the sky, I felt a sense of foreboding settle over me. Trust, once so easily given, now felt like a fragile thread. And I wondered if we could ever find our way back to the love we once shared. Chapter 3, The Weight of Doubt. The following days felt like walking through fog. I tried to engage in our usual routines, but the conversation we had loomed over us like a dark cloud. I could see Sarah's attempts to bridge the gap. She cooked dinner, suggested movie nights, and even planned a weekend getaway. But every gesture felt overshadowed by the unspoken tension between us. Each time her phone buzzed, my heart raced, a reflex now ingrained in me. I struggled to mask my anxiety, feigning indifference while grappling with the gnawing thought of Mark. Was he really just a friend? I felt like I was living in a suspenseful novel, the plot thickening with every message that slipped into her pocket. On Friday evening, as I walked through the door after work, I found Sarah sitting on the couch, a look of concentration on her face as she scrolled through her phone. I swallowed hard, preparing myself for another conversation about our trust issues, as she had put it. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Hi. I was just checking in with Jess," she replied, her eyes still glued to the screen. "Right. Is that all you're doing?" I couldn't help but let the suspicion creep into my voice. She looked up, a mixture of annoyance and frustration crossing her features. "What do you want me to say? I'm not cheating on you, I promise. Can we just move past this?" "Move past it?" "I want to, but every time I see you on your phone, it brings it all back," I admitted, my voice tightening. "I feel like I'm stuck in this loop of doubt." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I get it. I really do. But I need you to trust me. I thought we were stronger than this. Trust is earned, Sarah. And right now, I don't know where I stand." I leaned against the wall, feeling the weight of my own words. She stood up, exasperated. "What do you want from me? I can't prove to you that nothing is happening. I can't erase the past few weeks. Then let's talk about it. Why didn't you tell me about Mark? Why keep it a secret?" I pressed, desperate for clarity. "I didn't think it was a big deal. He's just someone I used to know, and we were joking around. I didn't want to upset you over nothing." "But it's not nothing, Sarah. If you knew it would bother me, why not just be upfront about it?" "I thought I was protecting you," she shouted, frustration spilling over. "I didn't want to cause a fight. Now we're fighting anyway," I retorted, feeling my heart race. "All I want is to understand where we stand, but it feels like I'm chasing shadows." She stared at me, eyes glistening, and for a moment, I thought I saw her resolve crack. "Maybe I should just stop texting him altogether. Would that make you feel better? I don't want you to cut people out of your life. I just need to know I can trust you," I replied, softer this time, feeling the sharpness of my earlier words dull with concern. "I'm not asking you to stop being you. Just, be honest with me. We can work through this together if we're open about everything," she said, her voice trembling. We sat in silence for a moment, the tension shifting slightly. I could see the worry etched on her face, and it softened my heart. Maybe we could find our way back, but I knew it would take time and honesty, qualities we both needed to recommit to. That weekend, we went for a hike, trying to reconnect with each other amidst the beautiful backdrop of nature. The crisp air and vibrant leaves were a welcome distraction, but the undercurrent of tension was still present. As we walked, I tried to focus on the surroundings, the rustling leaves, the distant sound of a creek, but my mind kept drifting back to that phone. "Do you ever think about what we built?" Sarah asked as we reached a lookout point, the valley sprawling below us. "Of course," I replied. "I think about it all the time. I just don't want it to crumble because of misunderstandings." She nodded, looking out at the view. "I love you, you know. I don't want to lose what we have. But I also need you to let me in, to trust me again." "I want to trust you," I said, feeling the weight of the moment. "But it's hard when everything feels uncertain. I can't shake the feeling that there's more to the story." Maybe there is, but it doesn't involve cheating, she insisted, turning to face me. It's about us being real with each other. I'm here, I want to fight for us. Can you meet me halfway? As I looked into her eyes, I saw sincerity, and for the first time in days, a glimmer of hope sparked within me. I can try. But it's going to take time, and we need to communicate openly, no more secrets. Deal, she said, a tentative smile breaking through. We stood there for a moment, the sun warming our faces, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt a flicker of possibility. Maybe we could navigate this together, piece by piece. But in the back of my mind, I knew the journey wouldn't be easy, and the road to rebuilding trust would be long and winding. As we began our descent, I felt a mix of determination and trepidation. Could we truly find our way back to the love we once shared? Only time would tell. Chapter 4, Rebuilding Trust. The following week was a mix of cautious optimism and lingering doubts. Sarah and I made an effort to communicate more openly, but the undercurrent of unease remained. I noticed a shift in her behavior. She was more present, more willing to share details about her day. Yet, every time she received a message, my heart would skip a beat, and I'd catch myself glancing at her phone, a reflex I couldn't seem to shake. On Wednesday evening, after a long day at work, I found her sitting at the dining table, typing away on her laptop. I felt a familiar twinge of anxiety. "What are you working on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Just some freelance stuff," she replied, glancing up briefly. "I have a deadline coming up. Anything I can help with?" I offered, hoping to engage her more. "Not really. Just need to finish this by Friday," she said, returning her focus to the screen. I felt a pang of disappointment. We used to spend our evenings talking, sharing our thoughts and dreams. Now, it felt like I was an outsider looking in. I took a seat across from her, trying to find the right words to break the silence that had settled between us. "Do you think we're moving in the right direction?" I asked, my voice tentative. She paused, looking thoughtful. "I hope so. I know it's going to take time, but I really want to make this work. I miss us." "I miss us too," I admitted, feeling the heaviness in my chest. "But I still can't shake the feeling that something's not quite right." "I understand. But can't we focus on what we have right now?" she suggested, her eyes pleading for me to see her point. "I want to," I said, though doubt still lingered. "But I need to know I can trust you completely. And that means being open about everything, even about Mark." She looked down, biting her lip. "Okay, let's talk about him. I don't want any secrets between us. I just don't understand why he's still in your life if it's causing issues for us," I said, searching for clarity. "Because he's part of my past," she replied. "But I see now that I should have communicated better. I don't want you to feel like you're competing with a ghost." I nodded slowly, appreciating her willingness to engage. "So, what do you plan to do about it?" "I think I should let him know that I'm in a relationship and that I need to set some boundaries," she said firmly. "I don't want to jeopardize what we have." Her commitment to addressing the issue gave me a glimmer of hope. "I'd appreciate that. It'll help me feel more secure," I admitted. "Let's do this together, okay? I want to build something stronger with you," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. The rest of the week unfolded with a renewed sense of purpose. Sarah initiated conversations about our future, asking me what I wanted in life, in our relationship. It felt refreshing, and for the first time in a while, I found myself laughing again, truly laughing, not just putting on a brave face. But as Saturday approached, I felt a familiar knot of apprehension tighten in my stomach. That was the day Sarah had planned to call Mark. The idea of her having that conversation gnawed at me, even as I tried to push it aside. When the day arrived, I decided to go for a run to clear my head. As I jogged through the park, I tried to focus on the rhythm of my breath and the sights around me. But every time I saw a couple laughing together, I couldn't help but think about what Sarah was doing. When I returned home, I found her sitting on the couch, phone in hand. My heart raced as I approached her. "How did it go?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, her expression a mixture of relief and anxiety. "It went okay. I told him about us and set some boundaries." I exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift. "And how did he take it?" "He was surprised but understanding. I think he got the message. He said he wants the best for me, and if that's with you, then he respects that," she replied, a hint of a smile breaking through. "That's good to hear," I said, though I still felt a twinge of uncertainty. "But how do you feel about it?" "I feel relieved. I didn't want to keep hiding things from you. It felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders," she confessed. "I really want to focus on us now." As the evening wore on, we talked about our hopes and dreams, weaving our stories together in a way I hadn't felt in weeks. I could see the spark returning to her eyes, and with each shared laugh, the shadows of doubt began to recede. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. "I know we're not out of the woods yet," I murmured, turning to face her. "But I'm glad we're trying." "Me too," she said softly, reaching for my hand. "I love you, and I want to prove to you that you can trust me." "I love you too," I replied, squeezing her hand. "Let's take it one step at a time. Together." As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of cautious hope. Trust was a delicate thing, and though it had been shaken, it was slowly beginning to mend. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it if she was by my side. Chapter 5, A Test of Faith. The following weeks felt like a dance, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sarah and I continued to navigate our relationship, cautiously optimistic but still acutely aware of the cracks that needed mending. The more we talked, the more I felt us inching toward a stronger foundation, but the specter of doubt still loomed. One Friday evening, we decided to host a small gathering at our apartment. We invited a few close friends, hoping to foster a sense of normalcy. As the evening unfolded, laughter filled the room, and for a while, the shadows of our recent troubles faded into the background. But amidst the cheerful chaos, my phone buzzed with a message from a mutual friend, "Hey, did you hear? Mark is back in town for the weekend." My heart sank. I glanced over at Sarah, who was engrossed in a conversation with Jess, her laughter ringing out like a melody. "Everything okay?" a voice interrupted my thoughts. It was Matt, one of my friends. "Yeah, just saw something that surprised me," I replied, forcing a smile. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he joked, nudging me. "Just thinking about the past," I muttered, my gaze drifting back to Sarah. As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I watched Sarah interact with our friends, and while she seemed genuinely happy, a part of me felt like I was still missing something. Later, as the last of our friends trickled out, I confronted the knot in my stomach. "Sarah," I began cautiously, "I heard Mark is back in town. Are you going to see him?" She paused, her expression shifting from joy to uncertainty. "I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I didn't plan on it, but I don't want to shut out people from my past. Can you see how that might bother me?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice calm. "I understand your concern, but I promise you, I'm focused on us. It's just a friendship," she replied, but I could sense the hesitation in her words. "I want to believe that, but it feels like a test of faith for me. Every time I think we're moving forward, something pulls me back," I said, frustration creeping in. "Look, I'll be honest, she said, crossing her arms. If I see him, it would be in a group setting. I wouldn't want to put us in a situation that jeopardizes our relationship. Then let's agree to communicate. If you're going to see him, just let me know beforehand. I don't want to be blindsided again, I replied, feeling the tightness in my chest ease slightly. Of course. I'll keep you in the loop. I want to be transparent, she promised, her sincerity evident. The next day, I decided to keep myself busy to distract from the nagging thoughts. I hit the gym, caught up on some reading, and tried to focus on my own projects. Yet, the idea of Sarah seeing Mark lingered at the back of my mind, casting a shadow over my day. That evening, as we settled on the couch to watch a movie, I couldn't shake the feeling of tension in the air. The phone buzzed again, this time with a notification from social media. I instinctively glanced at Sarah's screen, where I saw a post from Mark, * can't wait to catch up with old friends tonight. #reunion. *. My heart raced. Are you going to see him tonight? I asked, unable to hide my concern. She turned to me, her expression shifting. I didn't know he was having a reunion. I might run into him at the bar with Jess and the others. Didn't you just say you'd let me know if you were going to see him? My voice was sharper than I intended, and I immediately regretted it. I didn't think it would be an issue, she replied defensively. It's a big group. I'll be with friends. But it still involves him. I can't help but feel uneasy about it, I admitted, my frustration bubbling to the surface. She looked at me, her expression softening. I get it. I really do. But you have to trust me. This isn't about him, it's about us. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I want to trust you, but it's hard when I feel like the past is still lurking around. Then let's set some boundaries. If it bothers you, I won't engage. I'll prioritize our relationship over anything else, she said, her sincerity breaking through my anger. Okay, I replied, feeling a wave of relief. I appreciate that. Just keep me in the loop. After she left for the bar, I tried to occupy my mind. I turned on the TV, but the images blurred together, and I found myself staring into space, the clock ticking away the minutes. Hours passed, and I wrestled with my thoughts. Was I overreacting? Should I just trust her? My phone buzzed, and I looked down to see a message from Sarah, * everything's fine. Just hanging out with Jess and the group. No sign of Mark yet. *. I exhaled, my heart rate slowing. But then I remembered that nagging feeling that had become all too familiar. I felt a pang of guilt for feeling this way. She was right, it wasn't fair to project my insecurities onto her. Just as I started to relax, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a group message from Jess, * Mark just walked in. Can't wait to catch up? #awkward. The knot in my stomach tightened again. I typed a response, * just remember to keep things chill. But as I hit send, doubt washed over me. Would she really prioritize me if faced with the allure of an old connection? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of a precipice. The trust we were working to rebuild felt fragile, and I feared that one wrong move could send everything tumbling down. Later that night, as I lay in bed alone, the clock ticking ominously, I realized that I was terrified not just of losing her, but of losing the trust that had once anchored us both. I could only hope that when she returned, we'd be able to face whatever lay ahead together. Chapter 6, The Return. The hours dragged on, each tick of the clock amplifying my anxiety. I tried to distract myself with mindless scrolling on my phone, but all I could think about was Sarah and the possibility of her being with Mark. The weight of uncertainty felt heavy on my chest, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was holding my breath, waiting for something to happen. Finally, the door creaked open, and Sarah walked in, her laughter spilling into the room. Relief washed over me, but as I looked closer, I could see the tension in her shoulders. I wanted to greet her with joy, but my heart still raced with apprehension. "Hey. You're back," I said, forcing a smile. "Yeah, it was a fun night," she replied, taking off her coat and tossing it on the chair. "Jess and I ended up chatting with a bunch of people." "Did you see Mark?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes flickering to the ground. "Yeah, he was there." My heart dropped. "And it was fine. We just talked like old friends, nothing more. I swear." She sat down beside me, her expression earnest. "Did he say anything about wanting to catch up one-on-one?" I pressed, needing to know how deep the connection still ran. "No. He mentioned he was busy with work and didn't want to disrupt anything," she said, looking me in the eye. "I told him I'm with you, and he respected that." The honesty in her voice made me feel slightly better, but I still felt a wave of unease. "You know how I feel about this. It's not just about him, it's about us building trust." "I understand, and I'm really trying to respect that," she replied, reaching for my hand. "You're my priority, I promise." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the night hanging between us. "Can we talk about it more?" "I want to hear about your night," I said, trying to shift the mood. "Sure," she said, her expression softening. It felt good to see everyone, but it also reminded me how much I love what we have. I didn't want to lose sight of that. As she recounted the night, I felt the tension start to dissipate. She spoke of shared jokes and the camaraderie of old friends, and slowly, I began to see the evening as a bridge, not a barrier. But then she hesitated, her brow furrowing. I did notice something strange, though. "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning in. "When I walked in, Mark was really excited to see me. But when I told him about you, he kind of went quiet," she said. "It felt off, like he didn't expect me to be with someone." "Maybe he's just not over you," I suggested, trying to mask my growing unease. "Or maybe he was just surprised." "I don't want to read too much into it," she replied. "It's in the past, and that's where it belongs." I nodded, appreciating her resolve. "I just want to make sure we're on the same page moving forward. If anything ever feels off, I want us to be able to talk about it." "Of course," she said, squeezing my hand. "Communication is key, right?" "Exactly," I said, feeling a spark of hope. "Let's promise to keep each other in the loop." The following days felt lighter, and I began to feel more secure in our relationship. Sarah was making a conscious effort to include me in everything, from her plans with friends to her thoughts about the future. We even talked about taking a trip together, something we hadn't done in ages. But the specter of Mark still lingered in the back of my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was an ongoing test of our relationship, a fragile thread that could snap if not carefully maintained. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, I decided to address it directly. "Sarah, can we talk about Mark again? I want to make sure we're both comfortable." "Sure," she said, stirring the pasta in the pot. "What's on your mind?" "I just want to reiterate how important it is for me to feel secure in our relationship. I know I've said it before, but I really need to know that you're committed to us." "Of course I am," she replied, her voice earnest. "I chose you, and I mean it." I looked into her eyes, searching for any hint of doubt. "But how do you feel about Mark being around? I don't want to sound controlling, but I just don't want any surprises." She sighed, putting the spoon down. "I get it. Honestly, seeing him again was a bit nostalgic, but it also made me realize how much I value what we have. It was like looking into a past that doesn't fit me anymore. That's reassuring, I said, feeling a sense of relief. But if he tries to reach out, I want you to tell me. No more secrets, okay? Agreed, she said, stepping closer to me, her expression softening. I want to be transparent. I don't want to hide anything from you. We finished cooking and shared a quiet dinner together, the food bringing us closer in a way that felt comforting and familiar. As we talked about our week, the shadows that had lingered began to lift, replaced by laughter and the warmth of shared moments. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Maybe we could navigate this together after all. Trust was fragile, but with every open conversation, we were reinforcing the foundation of our relationship. I fell asleep with her head resting on my shoulder, feeling the weight of our shared struggles but also the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Trust, I realized, was a journey, and we were walking it together, one step at a time. Chapter 7, The Unexpected Call. As the days turned into weeks, our routine settled into a comfortable rhythm. We were more open with each other, sharing not only our fears but also our aspirations. The tension that had once filled the air began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of camaraderie that I had missed. One afternoon, while I was at work, my phone buzzed with a notification. I glanced down to see a message from Sarah, *Hey, just a heads up, Mark texted me. He wants to catch up. My heart sank. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. We had discussed this, we had agreed to be open about any interactions with him. I replied quickly, what did you say? A moment later, she responded, I told him I'm busy, but he asked if we could meet next week for coffee. I said I'd think about it. The knot in my stomach tightened. I felt the familiar wave of anxiety wash over me. I typed back, are you going to meet him? Her response was swift, I don't know yet. I want to be honest with you. Can we talk about this later? I put my phone down, my mind racing. We had been doing so well, and now it felt like we were back at square one. I understood her desire to be polite, but the thought of her meeting Mark again made my stomach churn. What if old feelings resurfaced? When I got home that evening, Sarah was already in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. The aroma of her cooking filled the air, but I couldn't fully enjoy it. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. Hey, I said, stepping into the kitchen. I saw your message. Can we talk about Mark? She turned, her expression shifting slightly. Sure. I figured you'd want to discuss it. Are you seriously considering meeting him? I asked, keeping my tone even but firm. I don't know, Jake. I feel like it's just coffee. We used to be friends, and I don't want to be rude, she replied, her voice tinged with frustration. But what if it opens up old wounds? What if it affects us? I pressed, feeling my anxiety spike. She sighed, putting down the knife. I get that it makes you uncomfortable. But I also need to set boundaries. I can't let my past dictate my present, and I don't want to be controlled by fear. I'm not trying to control you. I just want to feel secure in our relationship. Can't we talk about the implications of this? I pleaded. Talking is good, but it feels like you're assuming the worst. I want to be able to make my own choices, she said, her voice rising slightly. I trust you, I said, my frustration boiling over. But trust is built on mutual understanding. If you meet him, I need to know why. What's the purpose of catching up? I just want to catch up as friends. Can't we see this for what it is? She argued, crossing her arms. I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions. I want to support you, but it's hard when it feels like there's still a part of your life you're not sharing with me. I'll share everything with you. But I also have to take control of my own friendships, she insisted. We stood in silence for a moment, the tension palpable. I could see her frustration mirrored in my own. I didn't want to push her away, but I needed to express my feelings. Okay, I said finally, my voice softer. Just promise me that if you do decide to meet him, you'll tell me everything afterward. No details hidden. I need that reassurance. Fine, she replied, her expression softening slightly. But you have to promise not to freak out. I'll be honest with you. We agreed to a fragile truce, and as the evening wore on, I tried to shake off the anxiety. But deep down, I knew that the real test of our trust was yet to come. The following week passed in a blur, my mind preoccupied with thoughts of Sarah and Mark. She had been distant at times, and I could tell she was struggling with the decision. On the day she had mentioned, I found myself pacing the apartment, anxiety gnawing at my insides. Finally, just as the clock struck 6, I received a text from Sarah, * heading out to meet Mark. I'll call you afterward. *. My heart raced as I quickly replied, okay. I'm here if you need me. *. As the minutes dragged on, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on me. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I turned on the TV, but the sounds blended into a dull roar. I found myself staring at the clock, each second ticking by like an eternity. At last, my phone buzzed again, and I nearly jumped. It was Sarah. My heart raced as I answered. Hey, how's it going? Hi, Jake. I'm with him now. We're at that cafe we used to go to, she said, her voice slightly shaky. Okay, I said, trying to keep my tone light despite the unease bubbling beneath the surface. What are you guys talking about? It's just casual. We're talking about our jobs, catching up, she replied, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice. Are you okay? I asked, my concern sharpening. Yeah, I'm okay. It's just weird being here, she admitted. Do you want to leave? I suggested, feeling a rush of protectiveness. No, I want to be fair. I told him I'd meet him, and I don't want to run away, she said. Just remember what we talked about. If it feels off, you can always come home, I reminded her. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate that. I'll call you back soon, she promised. As she hung up, I felt a mix of emotions: anxiety, worry, and a tinge of betrayal. She was doing what she had every right to do, but the thought of her sitting across from Mark, laughing and reminiscing, made my heart ache. I tried to distract myself by cleaning the apartment, but every clatter of dishes reminded me of the silence that had fallen between us. What if this meeting changed everything? What if old feelings resurfaced? After what felt like hours, my phone rang again. I snatched it up, my heart racing. Hey. Hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm okay, she said, her voice a little more steady this time. Did you talk about anything important? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Mostly just small talk. I told him about my work, and he talked about his new job. It was nice to catch up, but I'm glad I set the boundaries, she replied. It's not like it was before. Relief washed over me, but I still needed more. Did anything feel off? I mean, did he seem interested? No, not at all. It was more like talking to a distant acquaintance, she said, and I could hear the honesty in her voice. Okay. I'm glad to hear that, I said, feeling the tension begin to ease. But I still want to know everything that happened. I promise I'll share all the details when I get home. I just wanted to check in first, she said, her tone calming my nerves. Thanks for being upfront, I said, feeling grateful for her honesty. I trust you. As we hung up, I took a deep breath, the weight on my chest lifting slightly. I realized that trust wasn't just about what was happening between us, it was also about how we navigated challenges together. With that thought, I settled into the couch, waiting for her to return, feeling more hopeful than before. This was a small one, but a step toward rebuilding what had felt so fragile. Whatever lay ahead, I knew we could face it together. Chapter 8, Reflections and Revelations. When Sarah finally walked through the door, I felt a rush of relief wash over me. She looked a bit worn, but there was a spark in her eyes that told me it hadn't been all bad. I jumped up from the couch, eager to hear every detail. "Hey, you," she said with a small smile, setting her bag down. "I'm back. Tell me everything," I urged, trying to read her expression as she walked toward me. She took a deep breath and sank onto the couch beside me. Okay, so it wasn't as awkward as I thought it would be. We talked for a while, just catching up. He seemed genuinely interested in how I was doing. I nodded, bracing myself for more. And? Did anything come up that felt off? Not really. I mean, there were moments of nostalgia, but I reminded myself that's all it was, she said, her voice steady. When I mentioned us, he seemed to get a bit quiet, but I think it was just a moment of realization for him. It felt good to assert that I'm happy with you. That reassured me. I'm glad to hear that. What about afterward? Did you feel tempted to linger or catch up more? She shook her head. Not at all. I was actually ready to leave pretty quickly after that. I didn't want to give him any false hope, and honestly, it felt nice to come back to you. Thank you for being honest with me about it, I said, feeling the tension of the past weeks start to dissolve. I know this isn't easy. I appreciate your support. I didn't want to hide anything from you, she replied, leaning in closer. It's important to me that you know where I stand. We settled into a comfortable silence, the weight of unspoken worries starting to lift. So, are you glad you went? I asked. Yeah, I think so. It was a little weird at first, but it helped me solidify my feelings for you, she said, her eyes meeting mine. It made me realize how much I value what we have. I couldn't help but smile. That's what I needed to hear. I want us to be on the same team, working through anything that comes our way. Sarah grinned. Absolutely. I want to build something lasting with you. As we chatted more about her meeting, I felt a sense of warmth grow between us. We transitioned to lighter topics, laughing over shared memories and future plans. It felt good to reconnect, and for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to feel fully at ease. Later that night, as we settled into bed, I wrapped my arms around her. I'm really proud of you for handling that well, I whispered, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Thanks, Jake. I'm proud of us, she replied, snuggling closer. But as I closed my eyes, a flicker of doubt still lingered in the back of my mind. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be entirely smooth. Trust, after all, required ongoing work. The next few days passed in a blissful haze. We took long walks, cooked meals together, and even binge-watched our favorite series. Yet, every so often, my mind would drift back to Mark, wondering if he would try to reach out again. On Friday evening, we planned a date night, a little getaway to a nearby cabin. I was excited to spend some quality time together, away from distractions. As we packed, I felt a twinge of anticipation. This could be a turning point for us. As we drove through winding roads, surrounded by trees ablaze with fall colors, I could feel the tension from before gradually fade away. We arrived at the cabin just as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the landscape. Wow, This place is beautiful, Sarah exclaimed as we stepped inside, her eyes sparkling with delight. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. I figured we could use a little escape. We settled in, lighting a fire in the fireplace and unpacking a few snacks. The ambience was cozy, and I could feel the stress of the past week slip away as we chatted about our dreams and plans for the future. As the fire crackled, I decided to take a leap. "So, where do you see us in a year?" I asked, watching her closely. She paused, her expression thoughtful. "I hope we'll be in a place where we feel even more secure together. Maybe even thinking about taking a big step." My heart raced at her words. "You mean like moving in together?" "Maybe," she said, a smile playing on her lips. "Or even just traveling together more, experiencing new things." "I'd love that," I replied, feeling a sense of hope wash over me. "I think we can get there, especially now that we're working through things together." As the night wore on, we shared stories and dreams, allowing ourselves to imagine a future together. I felt a surge of optimism, knowing that our bond was deepening, even in the face of uncertainty. Later, as we prepared for bed, I turned to Sarah. "I'm really glad we came here. It feels like a fresh start." "Me too," she said softly, her eyes shining in the low light. "I feel like we're finally moving forward." As we nestled under the blankets, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The past weeks had tested our trust, but I believed we were emerging stronger. With Sarah by my side, I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Just as I was drifting off to sleep, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I reached for it, half expecting it to be a notification about work. Instead, I saw a message from an unknown number, *, "Hey, it's Mark. Hope you're doing well. *. My heart raced as I read the words, and suddenly, all the warmth from the evening felt distant. I glanced over at Sarah, who was already asleep beside me, blissfully unaware of the message. I took a deep breath, grappling with the sudden surge of anxiety. Would this be the moment that tested everything we'd built? How would I handle it? I knew I had to make a choice whether to confront the situation head-on or to wait and see. As I lay there, the weight of the decision pressed down on me. In that moment, I realized that the journey wasn't just about rebuilding trust, it was about learning how to navigate the unknowns together. Chapter 9, Confronting the Past. The night stretched on, and I couldn't shake the unease swirling in my stomach. The message from Mark loomed large in my mind, casting a shadow over the peaceful evening Sarah and I had shared. I glanced over at her, peacefully asleep, and felt a pang of guilt. Should I tell her? Would it upset the balance we had finally started to restore? After a few agonizing moments of deliberation, I decided to respond. "Hey, Mark. I'm doing well. What's up?" My heart raced as I hit send, a mix of curiosity and apprehension flooding my mind. I lay back, staring at the ceiling, the glow of my phone screen illuminating the dark room. My thoughts spiraled. Did Mark want to rekindle something? Did he think he could come back into Sarah's life? A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Just wanted to check in. I saw you and Sarah are together now. Would love to catch up sometime. I felt my pulse quicken. He was already overstepping. I took a deep breath and typed back, "I'm not sure that's a good idea." I hesitated, then added, "I think it's best for Sarah and I to focus on our relationship." As I sent the message, I felt a mix of relief and dread. I couldn't let Mark's presence disrupt what Sarah and I had begun to rebuild. Just as I set my phone down, it buzzed again. Totally understand. Just thought I'd reach out. Hope you guys are happy. His words stung, but I refused to let them affect me. I wanted to be the one to control the narrative. Still, a small part of me wondered if this was a game I was playing. I turned to Sarah, who had stirred slightly in her sleep. The fire crackled softly, and I couldn't help but feel grateful for the warmth of our cabin, for the connection we had just begun to deepen. In the morning, I resolved to talk to Sarah about the message. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but keeping it to myself felt wrong. As sunlight filtered through the cabin's windows, I prepared breakfast, my heart heavy with the weight of my secret. When she came into the kitchen, her hair tousled and eyes still half closed, I couldn't help but smile. "Good morning, sleepyhead," I said, trying to lighten the mood. "Morning. What's cooking?" she replied, yawning. "Just some eggs and toast," I said, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. "But there's something I need to tell you." Her expression shifted, and she wiped the sleep from her eyes. "What is it?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "Last night, Mark texted me." Her face paled slightly. "Oh. He wanted to catch up," I said, watching her closely for any signs of distress. "I didn't think it was a good idea, so I told him we're focusing on our relationship." She nodded slowly, her gaze dropping to the counter. "Okay. I appreciate you telling me. What did you say exactly?" "I told him that I think it's best for us if he doesn't reach out to you," I replied. "I don't want any surprises or old feelings getting in the way." Sarah's eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite read. "I'm glad you spoke up. But I don't want to shut people out completely. I hope you understand that." "I do, but it's hard for me to reconcile that with everything we've been through," I admitted, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm just trying to protect what we're building." "I appreciate that, I really do," she said, her expression softening. "But I also want to feel like I can have my own friendships. Mark is part of my past, yes, but I don't want to erase that chapter." "I get that," I replied, frustration creeping into my tone. "But can you see how that might make me feel insecure? I just don't want history to repeat itself." She sighed, looking conflicted. "I understand your concerns, Jake. But I need to navigate this in my own way. Can we agree on some boundaries instead of shutting it down completely?" I rubbed the back of my neck, feeling the weight of the conversation. "What kind of boundaries?" "Let me keep communication open, but I promise to be transparent with you. If it ever feels uncomfortable for either of us, we'll talk about it," she said, her voice steady. I paused, letting her words sink in. "Okay. I can work with that. But if anything ever feels off, I need you to promise to tell me immediately." "Absolutely," she said, reaching for my hand. "We're in this together, right?" "Right," I replied, feeling a flicker of hope. "And I'll try to work on my trust issues. This isn't just on you, it's on both of us." With that, we finished breakfast, the tension lingering but softened by the understanding we had reached. As we ate, I felt more hopeful about the path ahead, even if it felt uncertain. After breakfast, we decided to take a hike around the cabin, the crisp air invigorating us. As we walked along the trail, we talked about everything: our favorite hikes, dreams of traveling, and the future we wanted to build together. It felt good to reconnect, and for the first time in a while, I felt the weight of my worries lift. That evening, after a long day of hiking and exploring, we settled in front of the fire with mugs of hot cocoa. Sarah nestled against me, and I felt a sense of comfort wash over me. "I'm glad we came here," I said, looking into the flickering flames. "I feel like we've grown a lot this weekend." "Me too," she said softly. "I think we've faced a lot, and we're still here." Just as I was about to respond, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I picked it up, my heart dropping as I saw another message from Mark. "Hey, I get it if you're not comfortable. Just wanted to reach out and say I hope you're both doing well. I'm here if you ever want to talk. Asterisk. I glanced at Sarah, who was now looking at me curiously. What's wrong? Mark just texted me again, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He says he's here if we ever want to talk. Sarah's brow furrowed. What does he mean by that? I think he's trying to stay in touch, which is what I was afraid of, I replied, frustration creeping in. He doesn't get it? I don't want to fight about this, she said, her voice calm but firm. If he's reaching out as a friend, maybe it's worth discussing. But I want to assure you, my focus is on us. Fine, I said, feeling the tension return. But you need to promise me that if it gets weird, you'll cut it off. I'm not comfortable with this. I promise, she said, her expression resolute. But we have to give it a chance. Let's see where it goes. If it starts to feel off, we'll talk. I nodded, knowing this was a delicate balancing act. Okay. But just remember that I'm here for you, no matter what. We settled back into the warmth of the cabin, but the weight of the situation hung over us. I wanted to believe that we could navigate this together, but the uncertainty of Mark's intentions gnawed at my resolve. As we drifted off to sleep that night, I held Sarah close, trying to cling to the feeling of safety. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much bigger challenge. But for now, we were together, and that was what mattered most.